Oliver, conglomerate discounts are usually kryptonite for Lex, but when an insurer with 550 billion euros of assets owns one of the world's best bond funds, despite some recent troubles at that fund, I would make an exception there. I'm talking about Allianz owning Pimco for the last 15 years. You, however, think differently.
Yes, I do. Allianz, as you say, owns Pimco and has done for 15 years. I think the time has come for Allianz to spin it off. And the reason is basically that there is a big conglomerate discount. Allianz shares trade, the market capitalisation is about 57 billion euros. But if you do a very basic sum of the parts calculation and add in what the insurance part of the business should be worth on an insurance multiple and what Pimco should be worth on an asset management multiple, you can get to something well north of 70 billion euros. That's a big gap in valuation, and by spinning Pimco off to its own shareholders, Allianz could create a lot of value.
Right, but when it bought in 2000, Pimco's assets under management were about $250 billion. They are now, even despite the troubles at the fund recently, about $1.9 trillion. And yes, lots of people talk about the bond market possibly wobbling as interest rates rise, but demographics, the economy, they seem to support continued demand for bonds. So really, should Allianz be sort of putting that to one side here?
I think it should. What I'm suggesting is that Allianz shareholders then will own shares in Pimco and will have the choice whether they want to own it or not. And you're right, it's not necessarily the end of the bond market. But I think from here, life at Allianz gets tougher, and there might well be some Allianz shareholders who don't want to own Pimco. And certainly, it's been a great asset to own, but that doesn't mean it always will be.
Essentially, this is what is the point of owning your supplier? That's the argument for Allianz keeping Pimco. But I mean, in terms of the integration over the last 15 years, how much has there been? I mean, which is really, how difficult would it be to get rid of Pimco at this point?
Well, the answer is not very difficult at all. Allianz has kept Pimco very much as its own separate entity, and I think over the past 15 years that's probably helped. Pimco has been allowed to grow quite independently and has done a fantastic job of it. But there's been really no integration with the rest of the Allianz group, and in 2011 it got even more independence than it had previously. It really operates as a very separate entity out of its own head office in California. So I don't think separation will be very difficult. And yes, Pimco manages a lot of assets for Allianz, but that could continue even after any separation. Companies, as you say, don't have to own their suppliers.
Okay, we should mention here that Pimco's co-CIO is a former Lex writer, so we have a dog in this fight. Thank you, Oliver.